On the night of March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 sat at the gate of Kuala Lumpur International Airport, preparing for a flight to Beijing. The 777 is recognized as one of the most reliable commercial airliners ever built, a staple of global long-haul travel. Inside the cockpit, a significant gap in experience separated the two pilots. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was a veteran with over 18,000 flight hours. Beside him was First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, a 27-year-old with just 39 hours of experience logged on this specific Boeing model. The first 19 minutes of the flight were textbook. The aircraft climbed through clear night skies, eventually leveling off at a standard cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Every indicator suggested a completely normal international transit. Modern aviation is built on a constant, automated dialogue between the aircraft and the ground. Through a series of overlapping digital links, a plane of this size is designed to be visible to controllers at every stage of its journey. The first break in that dialogue happened 25 minutes after takeoff. ACARS, the system that automatically transmits technical data to the airline, suddenly fell silent. On the flight deck and at ground control, the failure went unnoticed. No alarms were triggered. Minutes later, as the aircraft approached the handover point to Vietnamese airspace, the crew made a final routine radio call to Kuala Lumpur. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was the last time anyone on the ground heard from the cockpit. Seconds after that transmission, the plane's Mode S transponder stopped broadcasting. With the transponder disabled, MH370 instantly vanished from civilian radar screens, leaving controllers with no data on its current speed, its exact altitude, or its position. Civilian screens were blank, but Malaysian military radar captured a maneuver contradicting the flight plan. At 1:21 a.m., the aircraft executed a U-turn back across the Malaysian peninsula. It tracked northwest along the Strait of Malacca until 2:22 a.m., vanishing over the Andaman Sea. MH370 did not simply disappear, it systematically disconnected from the world. By the time ground control realized it was missing, the aircraft had already spent an hour flying a rogue course, effectively erasing its digital footprint in real time. With no radar track or radio transmissions, investigators were forced to look for unconventional clues. They needed to find a trail that the aircraft hadn't intentionally disabled. The British company Inmarsat provided the first breakthrough. Their analysts discovered that a satellite over the Indian Ocean had continued to exchange automated pings with MH370 for hours after it vanished from radar. These background electronic handshakes proved the aircraft remained airborne long into the morning. Analysts used the timing of those pings to calculate the aircraft's distance from the satellite, creating a series of arcs across the globe. The final ping placed the aircraft on a seventh arc that cut through one of the most remote and deepest sections of the southern Indian Ocean. For 16 months, the ocean yielded no clues. Then, in July 2015, a right-wing flaperon washed ashore on Reunion Island, thousands of miles from the predicted crash site. It was the first physical evidence recovered. The damage to the flaperon suggested the aircraft was not configured for a controlled water landing. Instead, the patterns of structural failure indicated that the plane had broken apart violently, though it remained unclear if that destruction began in the air or upon impact with the surface. To find the cause, investigators analyzed three main possibilities.
The first was an external hijacking, a theory initially supported by the discovery of two passengers traveling on stolen Iranian passports. However, thorough background checks by international intelligence agencies found no links between either man and any militant organizations. Both were identified as asylum seekers, and the hijacking theory was eventually set aside for lack of evidence. A second theory suggested a catastrophic emergency, such as a cargo fire or an electrical failure that incapacitated the crew. Under this scenario, the autopilot would have continued to fly the aircraft on its last programmed heading until the fuel was exhausted. But the official investigation noted that the aircraft's behavior, specifically the precise manual turns along established waypoints, was difficult to reconcile with a crew incapacitating fire. The timing and sequence of the system shutdowns suggested deliberate intervention rather than a random electrical failure. This led investigators to focus on deliberate action from the cockpit. The official report concluded that the aircraft's communication systems were likely manually switched off by someone with a deep understanding of the Boeing 777's architecture. This digital interface reflects data recovered by the FBI from a flight simulator at Captain Zahari's home. The recovered coordinates charted a flight path that began in Kuala Lumpur, turned south through the Andaman Sea, and ended in the same remote stretch of the southern Indian Ocean where the pings had stopped. While deliberate action is the only theory that aligns with the manual system shutdowns, the investigation found no definitive psychological motive or evidence of planning in the captain's personal life. The probe hit a permanent impasse. The mechanics of the disappearance were clear, but the intent remained a mystery. Deep-sea search teams relied on the aircraft's black boxes to provide final answers. These recorders are equipped with underwater locator beacons designed to emit a signal for 30 days following a crash at sea. During the search, investigators uncovered a critical maintenance failure. The battery for the flight data recorder's underwater beacon had actually expired 2 years before the flight and had never been replaced. This single oversight meant that even if search vessels passed directly over the wreckage, the beacon would have remained silent. Investigators were left searching for a needle in a millions of square mile haystack, without the one tool designed to help them find it. In 2018, authorities released a 495-page report summarizing years of international analysis. The conclusion was sobering. After a multi-year search costing upwards of $70 million, the team was unable to determine the real cause of the disappearance. For the families of the 239 people on board, the report offered technical data but no closure. The final documents left behind a trail of unanswered questions and no physical remains to return to the grieving. The disappearance prompted global aviation authorities to implement new tracking standards. These include mandates for automated, tamper-proof reporting systems that transmit an aircraft's location at regular intervals, independent of cockpit controls. These updates are designed to prevent a repeat of the specific communication blackout that allowed MH370 to go dark. However, these new rules do nothing to help locate the missing fuselage or the answers that remain somewhere on the ocean floor. MH370 demonstrated that human intent can bypass even the world's most advanced technology. A decade later, the story remains defined by its silence, an incomplete puzzle of evidence that the sea refuses to return.